Hi guys, welcome to tonight's live chat. How you doing? I hope you're doing okay. Good to see you guys chatting in the chat box and saying that you're so ready for this topic tonight. So that puts a lot of pressure on me when I see you guys like I'm ready for this. So um hopefully I can deliver. Yesterday was an interesting topic, right guys? It was very in-depth and comprehensive. I was going through the chat box from last night. I'm looking through. Some of you had me laughing out loud, literally. Others had my eyes welling up with tears. And then the other ones of you, I was just like, this is so interesting. I love this chat box. So um, I enjoy reading from you and hearing your experiences and what you feel is helping you. So hopefully tonight, this live chat will be just as helpful. So let's jump in. I only want to give one, I don't know, a minute or two, maybe five, we'll see, to go back over the emotionally detached and immature parent. But that's a little bit later. That's so that I can highlight the many ways that those kind of parents can impact you and then cause you to have to go through the experience of reparenting yourself. And another term that we often use is post-traumatic growth. Those are two different terms. So I want to break that down for you as well tonight. And then I want to give you a few ways, at least 11, 12 ways that you can continue this growth process and really leave an imprint on your life in a different way. Trauma leaves that imprint. I think I may have said this yesterday. Trauma sears almost that traumatic experience onto your brain. And it's really hard to say, you know what? I'm over the trauma. Or I'm going to go to that Barnes and Noble over there and buy every book in the store on trauma healing. Or you may try to look for workshops and webinars, and you may even, go far and wide to find the right therapist. And all of those things can definitely be helpful. But when trauma, when a neglectful, emotionally detached, immature, unstable parent, family member, relationship, once they create the trauma, then it is seared onto the brain, onto the heart, and then it shakes the soul. And so you may walk away from that experience feeling so empty and afraid and uncertain. And if we're honest, I think that a lot more people than we think go through that process. That's where researchers say, you know what, we need to find out what helps human beings get from trauma. Sorry, guys, that heater is way too much for me right now. Get through, how do we help people get through their trauma and then heal from it over time? Because it's not like it's just one piece to the puzzle of, I'm going to commit myself to healing. You're trying to deal with a whole, what do we call those things? Those puzzles, those little small mini puzzles, jigsaw puzzle. You're dealing with a jigsaw puzzle, and it has a lot of different components and avenues, and it has a lot of different traumas and experiences and fears and emotions. I think I may have said earlier, neurobiological pieces as well. Your brain is involved. So you've got this jigsaw puzzle, right, to kind of work through as you heal. It's not one piece of the puzzle. You've got a big puzzle that you're going to have to work with. And that's why researchers say, you know what, we got to figure this out. What can we do? Researchers, Richard, I'm trying to remember their names, Richard Tedeschi and Lawrence Calhoun, in the 1990s. Those are two researchers who came up with the term post-traumatic growth. I will put this in the description box so that you can look at their research. I'm also going to offer you something a little bit later that you can do at home. So stay with me just for that, because you're probably going to like it. So these two researchers said, you know what, we need to figure out, how does the mind, the heart, the soul heal after it's gone through so much trauma? And they've come up with and perpetuated the term post-traumatic growth. Now, when I'm talking to clients, sometimes they're like, okay, Tamara, what's the difference between reparenting and post-traumatic growth? So we're gonna go over that in a little bit here. Post-traumatic growth is really a process. I've experienced the pain, I've walked through the pain, I've grieved the loss, I've grieved the absence, I have grieved the fact that I am now a trauma survivor, and now I just want to move on. I don't care about retribution. I don't care about who did it to me. I don't care about when it happened. I just want to move on with my life. And that's the period of post-traumatic growth. It's hard to force healing, right? And so even for therapists, sometimes clients will come in and of course they think we're miracle workers. And, they sit in front of us and they're like, I really want to heal from this trauma that I experienced so many years ago, but I don't know how. And once a therapist, I'm sure if I have any therapists watching, they know exactly what I'm dealing with or what this means. But you say to the client, okay, can we start with kind of reviewing what happened and maybe do a trauma timeline, maybe practice some coping skills every day, every week, let's come up with a treatment plan, and sometimes my clients are like, what? Really? You mean to tell me we're going to talk? We're going to go back over the trauma. We're going to do a treatment plan. What's that going to do? Coping skills. And so then that's where we therapists have to break it down and say, healing is a process. You're not going to come to therapy and just do a couple of sessions and boom, you're over it. You're going to have to be vulnerable to a certain extent and humble and willing. And so post-traumatic growth says all of that I'm humble, I'm broken, I'm hurt, I'm willing. Reparenting, which is why you guys are here tonight. But I'm also going to teach you about a little bit about post-traumatic growth. Reparenting is different from post-traumatic growth. Reparenting is I am giving the inner child the love and the affection, the attention, and the compassion that it didn't get when I should have gotten it. So reparenting is the process of I'm healing my inner child because I've been bruised by those who should have loved me. And so now I'm here and I don't feel full. I don't feel grown up. I don't feel capable. And so now I've got to go inside somehow and say, this inner child needs to be healed. And so a lot of clients come to me and other therapists and say, I need to heal from this childhood trauma. Now, let me throw some new terms out there for you guys since I prefaced the live chat tonight. There's a term called, or maybe I think I'll start somewhere else. So I'm going to hold that thought. Post-traumatic growth and reparenting both have two things in common. One is that there are stages. So you're not going to just jump into this healing process. There's stages. Even with post-traumatic growth, which I'm going to give you the domains in just a second. But post-traumatic growth and reparenting both have domains. They both have processes and levels and steps. Because if you think about it, it's almost like a roller coaster when you're trying to heal from trauma. Sometimes you go a little further on the tracks and you realize I'm not ready to touch that, and you back up a little bit, right? Something may be going good in your life and everything seems okay. And you say, you know what? I think I'm ready to go down the rest of that roller coaster. And then something happens to you at work and then you regress and you may say, oh, forget it. I don't want to talk about it, right? So trauma kind of puts you on this roller coaster. Post-traumatic growth says, there's many domains to grow. There's 5 important ones. Reparenting yourself also has domains and levels, and it's a process over time. Reparenting yourself is truly what we call a corrective emotional experience. It's a corrective emotional experience. And you're really in the reparenting phase, you're correcting and going back over all the things that your parent destroyed, right? It's like, I'm trying to think of a really good example. It's like somebody trying to play a game, chess, Uno, cards, whatever. They come to the table confident, they're ready to go. They just know they're going to win this game. But when other players get involved and they start showing that they're just as good, right? That parent realizes, or that person, I'm losing here. I can't handle this. I can't maneuver this. I thought I knew this game. Maybe I really don't, right? Maybe I'm not that good at this game as I once thought I was. You know what? I'm out. And they push away from the table sometimes and they're like, I can't do this. If you have a parent that's done that to you growing up and even now as an adult child, your experience has to be a new one in order for you to reparent yourself. And that is why we call it a corrective emotional experience. We're correcting the damage and we're doing it in a way that is helpful, right? Post-traumatic growth is positive psychological change. That's a little bit different of a definition. It's positive psychological change. This is post-traumatic growth. It really targets your personal and spiritual sense of things in your world. You know, you in post-traumatic growth, you get a chance to kind of pump the brakes and say, what do I really want here out of my life? What am I really after? And what is it that I need to rebuild me on the inside? Reparenting says, I'm putting a stop to the damage, and I'm doing it now that I'm an adult. I have the skills, I have the patience, I have the desire to heal me. So I'm going to put a stop to this generational problem. You know, that's reparenting. Let me also mention, before I give you the five domains, the 5 domains, and I go to the chat box, let me mention to you also that your attachment style, according to research on reparenting yourself, your attachment style has a major impact on how you do the reparenting process. You know, your attachment style affects your healing. So if you have a avoidant attachment style, and ambiguous, is that the word I'm looking for? I think so. Attachment style. If you have a resistant and disorganized attachment style, an insecure attachment, it may be really hard for you to heal. Not impossible, but it may be hard because you've got to trust somebody in order to heal, right? And sometimes that's a person in a relationship with you, right? Sometimes that's your marriage partner. Sometimes that's your parent again, you know? Excuse me, because parents can change over time. So sometimes you can go back to your parent as an adult during the healing process and they can really love you through it, even though they were terrible parents when you were younger. And then you also have to go to a therapist and maybe a psychiatrist and open up and talk and be vulnerable. So that can be really difficult if you have an insecure, disorganized, avoidant attachment style. Now, the domains, before I go to the chat box, the domains of post-traumatic growth, which is, again, it's a positive psychological change. The first domain is really focusing on your personal growth. So let's say you've had a very traumatic past. You've had trauma in your childhood. Maybe you've had some trauma as an adult. And, kind of coming off the topic we discussed yesterday, maybe you grew up in a house with a very psychologically and mentally unstable parent who's immature and detached. You didn't get that opportunity to focus on your personal growth, right? Remember yesterday, I threw out the new term, individuation. That's the process of being connected to family and over time pulling away from family because you have to become your own self. So if there wasn't a process of individuation, then you don't get a chance to really zone in on your personal growth because you've had to grow up so fast. You've had to take the parentified role. You've had to do the adulting very soon. And so post-traumatic growth says, we're going to pause here. We're going to pump the brakes and we're going to focus on who are you? What do you want? What do you desire? What do you need? What makes you happy? What makes you feel satisfied, right? All those things. And that is personal growth. Now, post-traumatic growth says this, that personal growth should entail developing maturity, developing healthy coping skills, developing wisdom. I'm so appreciative of you guys. When you tell me every time, you say, thank you for your wisdom and thank you for, your wisdom and how you navigate this. And there really is a difference, isn't there, in having intelligence versus wisdom. Intelligence without wisdom can really be a kind of tricky experience, right? Because we can all be book smart, we can all be intelligent to a certain degree, but wisdom is such a different thing, and that's a different flow, right? So post-traumatic growth says personal growth must entail wisdom over time. The other part of this domain, and there's 5, so this is the second one, is building closer relationships. You have that parent over there who's abandoned you. You have that uncle over there who's abandoned you. You've had that cousin over there that just doesn't get you, and you're in this cocoon feeling so misunderstood and unloved, right? And so post-traumatic growth says, we're not going to go that way anymore. We're going to stop. We're going to turn around. We're going to go back this way. And maybe we'll turn some corners in the process, because you need closer relationships. Let's find some healthy ones. And so post-traumatic growth says our healthy relationship development is going to be a part of the healing process. For number 3, there's always a greater appreciation for life as being the focus in post-traumatic growth. How do I have a greater appreciation for life? Have you ever been through, and I'm getting to the chat box, guys, because I know you're just chatting away. I see the chat box just flowing. So I'm on my way to the chat box, but let me just say, have you, or maybe I should ask, have you seen a person who's been through so much, or have you even been this way? You know, you've been through so much, and you're tired of running, you're tired of dodging, you're tired of wrestling, and you just stop, and you may be out of breath, you may be tired, you may have somehow accumulated some physical health conditions, you may have accumulated some psychological issues, you may have accumulated some additional trauma. You pause and you say, you know what? After all of this, I'm grateful. I'm grateful. I appreciate the birds. And I really do. I appreciate hearing the little birdies chirp. I do. I'm like, oh my God. I literally have, this is a side note. I used to have 3 bird feeders in my backyard, but I actually have one. And it's like one of those cute little it's like a glass house, and they can go in there and get their food. And literally sometimes in the morning before I start seeing clients online, or I have to go into the office, I will literally grab my coffee and look at them, because I enjoy the communication between the birds, and there's different kinds of them, and they're very interesting, and they're designed differently, and they appear so very unhuman, and maybe at times smarter than humans, right? So I'm sharing that with you because that's giving you an example of what this part of post-traumatic growth means. I'm accepting the reality that I'm in, and I'm moving through it while being appreciative to the small things that are before me. It doesn't have to be just birds talking to each other and eating bird seeds in the morning. It could be as simple as, you know what? I didn't really realize how long my drive to work was. I actually got a chance to see a mother and their daughter walking across the street to get on the school bus. I had a moment to just kind of sit and see everybody turn at the arrow over there, right? It's basically saying, I'm appreciative for this time in this moment. Yes, I hurt. Yes, this is bad. Yes, I didn't want this, but whatever it is, right? Trauma, fear, whatever. But in this very moment, there was nothing going wrong. And for that, I am grateful. And so that's what this domain means. Domain number 4 is new possibilities. Post-traumatic growth says you've got to realign yourself, reposition yourself. And I'll give you a personal example, just for me, that anytime in my life where I've had to deal with something that's very different, it's unexpected. In some cases it is expected, but you didn't realize how you would react, right? And so even over my personal development over time outside of my career, I can simply say that every time there was a new challenge I had to kind of jump over, and here's a new hurdle and a new hurdle, I realized over time that I have to reposition myself. Sometimes I have to go away, get away from everyone and everything, process, pray, realign my values, realign my vision, and then realign my heart and my mind and go from there. And so this domain of post-traumatic growth says, I'm going to realign myself. How do I do that? Working out, reading my Bible, talking to that, bishop over there, or that rabbi, traveling to a different country and allowing myself to be interconnected with people that I like and seem to be loving, but I can't speak their same language, right? learning a new language, opening my heart to new people and new things. That's the repositioning, you know? And so that's important. Now, one last thing before we go, because this is number 5, domain for post-traumatic growth, and then we're going to jump into reparenting. The 5th part is spiritual development. So many people are like, I don't really care about spiritual development. I think it's back there. And I really try to drive home for most people that I come in contact with. You can't ignore your spiritual development. I know we are very carnal, right? We're very fleshly. We're here in the world, we're feeling things and doing things and, hearing things, seeing things with our 2 eyes. And we think we're experiencing, right? And sometimes all that experiencing kind of causes us to minimize that we have a spirit, right? And that's the very spirit that's going to leave this temple once we die, right? And so how do we readjust and realign our spiritual development? That is the 5th domain for post-traumatic growth. That's that spiritual repositioning. How do I realign my physical world with my spiritual world? Because if the truth be told, this is not it. Right? This is not it. It goes beyond that by the end of our time. And so we need to realign with that truth too. That is the 5 domains of post-traumatic growth. Okay, let me go to the chat box, see what you guys are saying, engage you a little bit. And we're going to get into what's wrong. So let's say, for example, you have, before I welcome you guys and get some questions and that, let's say you grew up, as we talked yesterday, in a household where there's an emotionally immature and detached parent. There's an immature parent who doesn't really want to be a part of your life, right? So that parent, and it can be both parents, cause damage. So I'm going to give you an outline of what happens to people, and this is backed by research, who have to reparent themselves. What happens to them? And so I'm going to outline that for you, give you a little bit of research, and then how do you continue moving forward in your life? So we're going to get there. Brianne D, I like that. Breezy, hello and welcome. Good to see you in tonight's live chat. Always good to see you as well as everybody else in the chat. James McDonald, thank you so much for that. I'm really glad that you're looking forward to this. Hopefully you're taking notes. I had a feeling that when I mentioned the corrective emotional experience, I could literally see you in my mind's eye, just like, okay, wait, Tamara, slow down. No, I'm kidding. But I love when you guys take notes because that means that you're digesting it. That's so awesome. Brandy says, I'm definitely looking forward to this topic tonight. That's awesome. Good to see you. Michelle Lynn, hello, welcome. I'm so glad to see you and glad to see you back. I saw your comment yesterday and in the chat box as I'm reviewing the chat and I'm like, darn, I missed that. So maybe I can answer that if I go back to yesterday's live chat. You did mention something about family. I just want you to know I saw you. I didn't ignore you. Sun and Sunflowers, hello, welcome back. I hope this is going to be helpful tonight. Fairy Girl, yeah, grateful to have you. Good to see you back. I saw your comments yesterday in the chat box, and I don't know what it is about you. I laugh out loud. I really do. My brother, he turned around and looked at me like, are you okay? Is there some stress on you that you need to relieve because you're laughing all by yourself? But Fairy Girl, you do that to me. Kel, me, CP, hello. Yeah, so glad to have you and welcome to the channel and the chat tonight. Good to see you. Abundant Life, good to see you back. Welcome. Felicia Lewis, haven't seen you in a while. Welcome back. Looking for comments, guys. Michelle Lynn says, I've been working on this at age 44 for almost 3 years in therapy. Yes. It's not a quick, what do they call it? One and done? No, you might be there for a while. And part of the puzzle, I'm just going to explain this briefly so we can get through some of this tonight. Part of this is life gets in the way. I just told my client this last week. I'm like, to her, I'm saying we have the process of wanting to heal from trauma. And in our mind, we think maybe a couple of months will be good, maybe a year. But the reality is a year is not enough. A couple of months is not enough. Some people think they can do a few weeks and be okay. It really is a process, and that can take 10 years, 17 years, in and out of therapy, because all the things that we're still going through as we're living everyday life kind of compounds the trauma that you're trying to already work on. And so it can extend the time, right? Yeah. Orlando, good to see you back tonight. Welcome, welcome. And I did see what you were saying to me yesterday about the 16. It was your dad who was 16 years old. So I saw that and I'm like, I missed that, you know? All right. But I did see it. I did see it. Sammy D, good to see you back tonight. Welcome. SH, good to see you back tonight. Bear with me as I go through all these comments. Yeah, TamFam is resilient. Agree. Higher spiritual frequencies. Oh my goodness. Did you make up that screen name for tonight's live chat? That's good. I love that. Welcome. Good to see you. Anaphylaxis. Good to see you as well. Welcome back. Getting into the comments here. Yeah, absolutely. SH says, so wish it was like a run of antibiotics. I know, right? I know. Tammy Nicely, welcome back. Good to see you. And Myrrh, hello. So glad to see that you are excited to be here. This is good. Welcome, welcome. Half the battle, knowing is. Hello. Welcome. All right, here we go. Leslie Sturm, hello, welcome. Glad to see you tonight. Leslie says, excuse me. Leslie says, I am at post-traumatic growth. I do need them to help me or say sorry. Yeah, I understand. You're saying I do not need them to help me. Yep. Or say sorry. I moved on in therapy and with healthy relationships. There you go. Most people think that healing entails the other person feeling some kind of guilt, the other person being punished, the other person, I need to see you go through some pain and then maybe I could get to a place of growth. I just want to see you punished and then I can forgive you. And okay, I get that. That's a safe place that we usually go when we're upset, hurt, it makes sense. But Leslie Sturm, I love that you are kind of showing that you don't really have to do that, right? You don't have to hold a grudge. You don't have to wait on them. Just heal and do it with new experiences. I really like that. Excuse me, guys. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Many of my colleagues, I have colleagues that I have remained really close with in Canada, in the UK, in the US, and they all say the same thing, that you can move forward without forgiveness of the other person in some ways. You don't have to hold the grudge, but you also can take your time forgiving. You can incorporate new experiences, you can incorporate new people, and that can be a start. And then over time, you realize that, okay, my growth stage doesn't include them. So I can stop holding this grudge and being angry, and I can stop waiting on them to acknowledge what they've done so that I, can move forward, So there's a lot to this, right? Thank you for that, Leslie. I'm glad you brought that up. James McDonald says, I personally believe that trauma is so multifaceted and multi-layered. Yes. That it is difficult to know where to begin with, isn't it? When clients, that was so perfectly said. When clients come into my office for trauma therapy, and sometimes it's little kids, which makes it really difficult. It's like 5, 6, 7, 8, between 5 and I'm going to say 12. It's really hard to do trauma therapy with kids sometimes. But whether it's a child, an adolescent, or an adult, you're right. Sometimes you ask, what is my questioning? I don't know if everybody else does. So let me just clear that up. Maybe this is how other therapists do it, but this is the way that I do it. I always ask, why therapy for you at this time? What are you facing and what are you grappling with? And they will say, well, I don't know this, maybe I should start with my childhood. When I was 5, and then sometimes they'll stop again and they'll say, you know what? Maybe it was when I was 1. When I was 1, and sometimes they'll stop again and they'll say, you know what? my mom was under a lot of stress when she was pregnant with me. And then we'll come from that and we'll go all the way up until, their age now. And it's like, okay, so we just talked about a whole lifetime of trauma. Where do we even begin? And so you're right, James McDonald. It's difficult for people to say, you know what, that's a trauma. Let's start there, because maybe their entire life has just been, filled with trauma, Falcon, the black belt. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate you. And I don't disagree. He says African parents are the most abusive of them all. Ooh, I don't know if I want to make that general statement. So let me curtail this for you just a little bit, because I agree. It's cultural for them to be abusive, to be a little harsh, right? To be very harsh, sometimes extremely harsh, and sometimes it's swept under the carpet of parenting, right? Or culture. This is how we are in our culture. Not all African parents are like that, but you're right. It depends on what African tribe, what African family home you're in, what African culture. And yes, I can 100% agree that they can be the most abusive of all. And I don't just want to say that for African parents, because sometimes German parents can be really difficult. If you've ever seen a German family who's strict, firm, I'm just going to say a Judge Judy kind of a person. Judge Judy is straight to the point, For those of you who are new and maybe not have been here with me before, my mother and my brothers, they like to watch Judge Judy, my God. And I like her too. But they just watch her one, show back to back to back. And she's like that. She's no nonsense. Imagine growing up in a home where you've got this judge over you at all times. You know what I mean? And so German families are like that too. African families, I do agree. But there's also other cultures that are that way as well. But I'm glad you pointed that out. 100% agree. Deborah Penna, hello, welcome back. Good to see you. It's been a little while. Katie Razy, hello. Glad to see you. Did you just say fashionably late? Don't feel bad. I'm like that too. Anne of Hearts, hello and welcome. Good to see you. Okay, let's get into some of this, guys. Let me go back really quickly and just answer a few more, and then we're going to go back to the content. Falcon, the black belt says, I realized how bad my parents were after becoming a parent. Yeah, totally agree with that. It's like you get a chance to like hold up a mirror, when you become a parent yourself. It's like, oh, so that was wrong when I was a kid. That was wrong. That should have never happened. Yeah, totally get you. Free Lady, hello. I like that screen name. Welcome. Good to have you. Lore Fit, hello, and good to see you back tonight. I love your encouragement, all of you. But I saw your encouragement yesterday, Lore Fit, and I'm like, that's my girl. Thank you so much for being so kind. James McDonald, thank you so much for the super chat. And I appreciate you saying that this is invaluable. Thank you for that. I'm so glad this is helpful. Mary Emma, yeah. Hello, welcome. Glad to see you. She says, good evening, everyone. Hope everyone is doing good. Yeah, same to you. All right. 2 more. Yeah. Falcon, the black belt says, Tam, I definitely can see that. It seems to be a global thing. 100%. Sunsita, hello. Glad to see you. And that's a fantastic question. You're going to be my last one before I go back into the content. Sunsita says, can they change? What? These kind of parents? Yes and no. It really depends on what we're dealing with. Yesterday, Jessica J, I don't know if she's on here tonight, but Jessica J mentioned her mother-in-law who's 85. And I told her yesterday, I said, an 85-year-old family member who is like a child still, we call that kind of like a personality disorder, because it's a long-standing, pervasive, chronic pattern of behavior that can't be erased easily. And nothing is going to happen to shift them. It's just not going to happen. And so if you're dealing with a personality disorder in a person, in a parent, in a relationship, it's not going to be easy to change. I'm not going to say impossible, but it's not going to be easy to change. Now, if you're dealing with somebody who has trauma and they don't have a personality disorder and they are working on it, they are aware of it, they're trying to get better, then I say, yes, they can change. But in, situations where there's a personality disorder, that's going to be a little bit more difficult. I hope that makes sense. Okay, let's get into this, right, guys? So let's say, for example, you have one of those emotionally detached and immature parents. They've impacted you in such a way that you feel like now you need to reparent you as the adult. So what's going on here? Research in psychology suggests, okay, let me get some more water. You guys ready for this? I feel like I'm coming down with a new virus. I'm just saying. I'm not a hypochondriac, but I don't feel good today. Okay, let's jump in. Lack of self-belief and lack of self-validation. I've seen this. Research says this. You feel like you need to reparent yourself. Why do you need to reparent yourself? Because most likely you have experienced a lack of self-belief and a lack of self-validation. Self-validation is this. It says, I've experienced this at your hands or in this situation. I know my pain. I know my thoughts. And I confirm and validate that my perception of reality is true. I am not I am not going to back down and say, no, it didn't happen that way. Yes, it happened that way. And I'm going to validate that within myself, whether you believe it or not, right? Because sometimes I think, and I see this a lot in therapy, sometimes I think we look to other people for validation. Sometimes we go to our siblings. Do you remember that time when dad A, B, and C? Do you remember seeing mom like that? You may ask your sister or brother that, or you may look at your husband and say, didn't you just see what she did to me? She's been doing this to me all my life, right? And if you have a good husband, he'll go along and say, I saw it. But there are some husbands that are like, no, I didn't see any of it, and that can make you feel even more invalidated. But, self-validation is significant. And if you don't get that validation as a child, and you feel like you need to reparent yourself, you're probably going to struggle a little bit, maybe even struggle with the belief in the idea that this has happened to you. I think it was Bryn yesterday. I can't think of her last name. She said, I don't know if this really happened or if I'm seeing this incorrectly or what. And there's that invalidation a little bit there, right? So psychology research on reparenting yourself says you may have a lack of self-belief and self-validation. The other piece of this puzzle is you may have experienced years of invalidation. Consider that. Invalidated with your feelings and thoughts. Invalidated maybe with some of the behaviors you've exhibited. Invalidated because your cousins and your uncle and your aunts don't believe anything has happened to you. Invalidated by sometimes even a healthcare professional, a therapist, a psychiatrist, right? So all of those years of invalidation, it piles up and it has an impact on you. You may also have experienced the internalization of mistakes, right? And somehow bad decisions. When you're dealing with trauma, you're dealing with immature and detached parents, and now you're trying to realign yourself in your world as an adult. There's many mistakes you're going to make, and maybe even some bad decisions too. But the sad part is sometimes we internalize that as we're failures, right? We internalize and we say, you know what, if I was bad in that situation, I'm really going to be bad here. I don't deserve anything, right? Or sometimes we'll sabotage something because we don't want to accept that there could be some possibility here. So that's part of this. You also may have a low perception over time, a low perception of reality, a low perception of control as well. So a low perception of reality says, I can't believe myself. So whatever I see, I'm just going to minimize it. I'm going to ask somebody else if they saw the same thing. And if they haven't, I didn't see it either. You may also have a low perception of control in your life. I can't control anything in my world. Why should I try? Everything's spinning out of control. Guys, let me turn my heat down. I'm roasting. Hold on. I'm sorry. I turned it up to like literally 75. It feels like it's 100. So that's that piece of the puzzle. Okay, guys, you may also have grown up with a parent who has a really tricky mental health condition and a really tricky series of behaviors that you have lived up under in such a way that you have grown up feeling trapped. You have grown up feeling misunderstood. You have grown up feeling battered, right? That's a possibility. A mother who is mentally unstable can wreck your entire childhood. Why? Because we rely on our mothers. No matter what, dad can go gamble, dad can go have an affair, dad can leave the house. It's going to hurt me and I'm going to miss my dad. But sometimes, if not most times, moms can step in and hold and take care of everything. And you don't miss dad. Or maybe you miss dad, but it's not that big of a deal, right? But when your mother is ill and she is the driver of all chaos, all insecurity, all problems, that can damage you for a while. Doesn't mean for life, but it can definitely leave some seared trauma on your brain, you know? Fathers who are mentally ill can also do the same thing and who have personality disorders. There's also, living in an unsettled home, living in an inconsistent home, living in a home where there's no predictability. You're just kind of going through every minute of the day wondering what's going to happen next, right? I have kids like that come and see me. And one kid broke my heart a month ago, my Lord. He's the cutest little boy. He's 8. And we were in session and he's, explaining things to me and talking to me about his mom and his dad and how they fight all the time. And I said to him, I said, let's do an art activity. So we were painting and coloring and he's telling me everything. And I said, okay, we're at the end of the session. Do you want to bring anything up before it's time to go? And he says, yes, I do. I says, yeah, go ahead. I'm listening. And we're picking things up. And he says to me, Miss Tamara, can I just live here? Do I have to go home? My heart, and I was like, he doesn't want to go home. He doesn't want to, and he's got 2 parents in the waiting room, mom and dad, but he's hurting. And it's because their home life is unsettled. Their home life is unpredictable. Their home life is inconsistent. And the only consistency he has in therapy is peaceful to him. It's secure, right? There's consistency. He knows what's coming next, He's a beautiful boy, but he really made a statement that I'll probably never forget. So you can go through the need to reparent yourself as an adult if you have grown up in an inconsistent home, an unpredictable home, a home where it's always unsettled. There is no peace, right? Parental divorce and separation can also cause issues, right? Having a really driven parent, a really hostile parent. I'm driven as well, so I get that piece of the puzzle, but you can't be so quote unquote driven that you neglect your husband, neglect your wife, neglect your children, neglect your family, neglect their need of you. You can't do that. So there are some parents, though, who are very driven and they will totally push their family to the background because they've got to write that report and get it in because the boss needs to see it, And so that can be difficult. Chronic worry can be an issue as well for you. Let's say you had chronic worry over your mother who had borderline personality disorder and she often threatened suicide and often threatened harm herself, right? That internal worry can cause a lot of trauma. What is she going to do now? What's going to happen now? She terrifies me, one kid told me years ago. And early exposure to a dysfunctional family is another piece of this puzzle that could cause you to need to reparent yourself as an adult. Now, let me bring up briefly the research behind all of this, and then I'm going to go back to the chat box, and then I'm going to give you tips on how to continue to heal and grow. But some of the research says that if you want to grow past this stage of trying to make sense out of the pain and the trauma the bad parenting and the toxic family relationships that you've had, if you want to find your way out of this, there's a process. And so there's a 4-step reparenting process. We actually call it the four pillars of reparenting. The first is discipline. Discipline. Parents who are not parents don't discipline. Discipline doesn't mean I'm going to, which I absolutely hate this, spank you. I'm going to take my belt off and threaten you. You know, that's not what I mean by discipline. That's not what reparenting means. Discipline doesn't also mean I'm going to yell at you. I'm going to correct you every minute of the day. I'm going to tell you where you're bad and where you're wrong. Reparenting discipline says this, that I need structure. I need consistency. I need promises that are going to be kept. I need boundaries. I need space to feel, think, and grow. That's the kind of discipline of these 4 pillars. And the first pillar is discipline. I need rules. I need structure and control. I need commitment. That's what that means. The second pillar is emotion regulation. For those of you who were with me yesterday, when I talked about co-regulators, parents, they serve as co-regulators of emotion. They also serve as external managers of a child's emotions. And when you don't get that from your parent, emotion regulation is going to be very difficult throughout the years, even into adulthood. And so the second pillar here is emotion regulation. In order to reparent yourself, you have to build emotion regulation. The third thing that the 4 pillars of reparenting says that we have to do in order to reparent is to kind of develop this newfound joy, this newfound joy. And joy is different from happiness. Happiness is fleeting. Joy is long-term. You can cry and hurt and grieve and still have a little bit of joy on the inside. So this third pillar says you have to have something that you feel gives you joy on the inside. That's the kind of joy that you get when maybe somebody like myself, I shared yesterday, my aunt just passed away. Maybe there's death in the family, but on that same day that I heard the bad news and had to share that bad news with my mother and my family, that same day, I got a really good hug from one of my kids. He was happy to see me because they haven't seen me since Thanksgiving. Now, that feeling, I guess you can say, is joy, right? You still have pain because everyday life is still happening and things are still happening. And yet I can look at this little boy and allow him to just embrace me, and I can feel good in that moment. That is joy. That's an example of joy. The fourth and the final pillar of reparenting is self-care. And that doesn't mean some deep breaths and a little bit of nail polish on your nails, or for the guys, a little bit of working out in the backyard. I'm going to build a shed. None of that. You can, but self-care in this sense means this, that I'm going to build a healthy social system or family system. I'm going to cling to those people who are really for me. I'm going to stay close to them. I'm going to build insight within myself and grow. I'm going to develop basic skills that are better than the ones that I had before. I'm going to go get that job over there because I really want to make some more money and buy a 5-bedroom house. I want to do something like that for my family. So my reparenting self-care says that I'm going to increase my value, increase my self-worth, and I'm going to cater to me. And so that is the final pillar of reparenting. 1, discipline. 2, emotional regulation. 3 is joy. And 4 is self-care. I almost forgot. Self-care. All right, guys, I'm going to tell you how to continue growing in a very practical ABC fashion when I come back from the chat box because I know you guys are chatting and I'm so far behind. Oh my God. Juby Joe, hello. Good to see you always. Juby Joe says, wow, this is but another Pressless Live with Tamara. Thank you. Yeah, you're welcome. And thank you so much for that. That's so wonderful. Thank you. Laura Fitz says, reparenting also means setting boundaries. You will no longer treat me any kind of way and think you will remain in my life. Absolutely. And let me just say that has to be firm, right, Laura Fit? Like, I'm even like that in my profession. Oh, so you're going to disrespect me? We're done. You know, you're going to try to manipulate me? Case closed. You know, work, career, family, friends, strangers, even the guy that works down the street at Walmart, the cousin that works over at Gabriel Brothers. I'm being silly right now. But if you're going to disrespect me, if you're not going to respect my boundaries, then we're done, right? And so, yes, 100% agree with that. And you have to keep it firm because the minute your boundaries become fluid and they're kind of wobbly, you're letting the other person know you can manipulate me, right? So you really have to keep it tight. Thank you for saying that. I totally agree. Okay. Starburst, hello. Welcome back. So good to see you. Mama Boom Bam, hello. Glad to see you. She says, my, you all, oh, may, I think that's what you meant. May you all find peace within. I love that. Love that. Call me. CP says, oh, Lord, avoided and disorganized. I know, right? Some of the things I'm telling you guys and teaching you guys, I'm like, right now I'm talking to myself. Falcon, the black belt, hello. And I think I welcomed you already. Falcon, the black belt says, my mother guilt tripped me into giving her some of my student loan money. Of course, she didn't help me pay any of it off. Oh, that's awful. My Lord. And I don't even think we're allowed to do that. Is that illegal, guys? I don't know. I'm not going to say that. You didn't just say that. You know, she should be ashamed of herself, right? Like, you know, I'm trying to help you. Is this how it goes? So I'm sorry to hear that. Fairy girl, let me read this for a second because I very rarely get a chance to stop and read your comments. Aware how hard it is to change the impulse we carry to challenge or fawn or hide from those types. It's very poetic. I get what you were saying. Yes, it is hard to change. I agree with that. I'm going to leave it at that. I get what you're saying. Do you write poetry, fairy girl? Because sometimes I read poetry even as an adult. I'm like, wait a minute, let me read over that again. And it's like 5 o'clock when I start and I'm done at like 7 because I'm still trying to figure it out. Orlando says, I have prayed for everyone and forgive them. God gave me a heart of forgiveness. Oh, that's so beautiful. Yeah, that's so true. People that won't forgive will die in their own evil. Sounds like the book of Ecclesiastes and Proverbs in the Bible. That's what I hear when you say that. Yeah, I can see that. That resonates with me as well. Yeah, I love that. I think that's a place of strength that you're talking about, you know? Yes. Is that for me or is that for Tammy Nicely? I don't know. I think you're talking to Tammy Nicely. I see that now. I'm sorry. Okay, bear with me. I'm looking. Orlando says wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Yep. Oh, excuse me. I very much agree with that. Okay. Angelo San Jose, is that correct? If I mispronounced that, forgive me, correct me. Hello and welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's chat. I don't remember you. So welcome to the channel. Angelo says parents can change over time. So good. Yeah, they can. Yeah. I think you're quoting me. Yeah, absolutely. They can. It just depends on what you're dealing with, you know? Anne of Hearts says you can forgive, but you won't allow the same thing again and again. Absolutely. My late grandmother, who was the most positive person in the whole world, I actually did a video inspired by her 2 or 3 years ago. It was a video on toxic positivity. I will post it in case you guys want to go back and see that. But my grandmother, my late grandmother, she was so positive that there would be times, I would have a tear running down my face and she's trying to be positive. And I'm like, why? No, I'm not ready for this. And then, there are times when she used to show me how to forgive. Like somebody just, said something rude to her. One time she had a neighbor live downstairs and from her, because she lived in a duplex for a very long time. And her neighbor called the police because my grandmother had my uncle and his children over. And of course, a family's a family. They're loud and they're children. And so my grandmother goes to the front door and she talks to the police, and the police looks in and he's looking at the family and he's like, oh, you guys are having a little party, somebody's birthday or graduation, or summer vacation, something like that. And my grandma told me about it. And I'm like, she did not call the police on you. I was so upset. I was like 16. I was so mad. And I'm like, I'm going down there. And my grandma's like, don't do it. And she says to me, she says, Tammy, she used to call me Tammy, or T is what she used to call me. She said, we are going to forgive. We're going to forgive. Don't feed it. We're going to forgive. And I think somewhere she got down into my heart. So I learned to do the same thing. But you're right, Anne of Hearts. You don't have to allow the same thing over and over and over, because we didn't. We ignored her from that point on, and it was like she didn't even live downstairs. You know what I mean? You can forgive, but it doesn't mean you have to continue to allow the abuse. Okay, let's keep going. Louis Apaza, I hope I said that correctly. Welcome back. It's so good to see you again. You have been on the channel over the years. I haven't seen you in so long. So it's good to see you. Good to see you. Anne of Hearts says, it's actually not that hard to forgive. It's much harder to shut off your empathy so you don't get burned again and again. I so agree with that. That's amazing. I agree with that. I'm going to star that comment, Anne of Hearts, because I think that was so therapeutically said. That's beautiful. Fairy Girl, I put you up on the screen so people can see you. Bear with me. James McDonald says, I don't attract unhealthy relationships anymore, thankfully. Yeah, that's awesome. That means you've grown. That means you've healed in some ways. He goes on to say, must be a great indicator of going through the post-traumatic growth process. It very much is. Once you can say goodbye to that and welcome the new, that's when you know you're okay. Kim Math E. Hello, good to see you. Welcome back tonight. Okay. Sammy D says, it's the smallest things that mean so much. Yes, I think she's referring to the 5 domains of post-traumatic growth, and that's the appreciation of life. Sunshine and Beauty. Hello, good to see you back tonight. Thank you so much, Kim Matthew. Yeah, I try to give you guys, I don't know if you know or can tell, I try to give you guys a lot of examples. That's part of the psychology for sure. Thank you for saying that, Kim. M, I think I'm saying that right. Hello and welcome. I haven't seen you in a while. Coral Sky, haven't seen you in a while as well. Welcome back. Good to see you. All right. Bear with me as I go through this. I'm so behind. Thank you, Falcon. I appreciate you for that. Oh God, Fairy Girl, are you cute or what? I love those. Nancy R says, I'm taking notes. Good to know. Good to know. Kay Razy, that's so selfless of you. Thank you. Oh my goodness, that's so, guys, she's giving away memberships to you. Kay Razy, thank you so much. You deserve to be thanked. That's so wonderful. And let me just put up Leslie Sturm. She says, you are awesome, Kay Razy. Is that so sweet? Fairy Girl also thanks you. That's so wonderful. Thank you so much for that. For those of you who don't know, my channel now has memberships and I've been using them. A lot of you have been signing up for memberships. You will, let me just say this really quickly before I go back to the chat box. In a sense, memberships on my channel are there to support the community. It allows me to continue to do what I'm doing. And on top of that, I will, it's coming up really soon here. I will be mailing things to you if you get onto my mailing list. Sometimes I will send you information. Sometimes I will send you thank you cards. Sometimes I will send you little small tokens of my appreciation just for how you are on the channel. I also allow consultations for an hour or more if you buy a membership that is in the higher tier, if you will. So if you're interested in looking at the memberships and all the perks, go ahead and check that out on my channel. So that's what they're talking about for those of you who aren't aware of what's going on. Okay, Orlando says the last 4.5 years have been challenging spiritually, physically, emotionally, and financially, getting better. Yes, that's so good. I remember you telling us that last year, that it was just really hard, but it's getting better. So that's really good. Sammy D.K. says, so sweet. She's grateful as well. Falcon says, yeah, he's showing you his gratitude as well. Nicole Spencer, hello and welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat, and you're welcome. I don't know if you're talking to me or Kay Razy, but I'm just going to say you're welcome. Kim Matthews says, I've been working on this since I was born. Absolutely. Totally get you. Totally get you. All right. One more comment. Lore Fit. Oh, thank you so much for the super chat. That's so beautiful. Thank you for supporting as well and sending that. Thank you so much. That's so kind of you. All right, let's get back in. You ready, guys? Because I don't want us to be in the comments so much that we miss the really good pieces of the puzzle. How do I keep moving ahead? Ready? Research in psychology, and I also back all these things up, which is why I went to the research to make sure that what I believe is going to help the healing process is literally backed by research, and I was so glad to see that it was. Okay, the first thing that you want to, this thing doesn't exist. Remember I did this yesterday, guys? Okay, ready? The first part of reparenting yourself and keeping yourself moving forward is really identifying, embracing, and learning your coping style. That's number one. A coping style in psychology is a preferred, useful, successful way that you tend to respond to trauma. Your coping style is really how you cope the best. For me, I have to, so I'm going to give you an example. So for me, if I'm going through a period in my life where I feel like I need to figure out how best to cope with something, I have to tap into my coping style. And my coping style is I need to pray. I need to journal. I need to be in nature somewhere, somehow. I need to clean my whole house because I need some organization, right? And so it continues to go on and on and on. I have to see kids. I have to talk to them and engage with them. And I'm like, my antennas are up when I'm shopping in public and I hear a kid. Sometimes kids will just look at me and respond to me, and I'll respond to them. One time I was in, you guys know Five Below, right? Five Below is like a kiddie store. Well, I go in there to add things to my office environment, candy, cookies, that kind of thing. And there was a little girl in there, and she's like, hi, lady. And she starts talking to me, and we ended up talking about Spider-Man for a good 2 seconds. So that was like this is wonderful. This is my coping style moment. You know what I mean? So you have to be able to identify and really make it clear to yourself that this is the way that I'm going to cope with this particular situation. And this is where I'm comfortable doing it, right? You have to be brutally honest with yourself. Because I think sometimes we say, I'm being honest, when in the back of your mind, you're still hanging on to something. You're still worrying about something. You're still struggling with something. So sometimes we have to be brutally honest with ourselves and say, you know what? This hurts. It's terrible. It's bad. I messed up. I need to ask for forgiveness. I don't like my cousin anymore. I don't like my aunt anymore. I can't stand, and I almost hate my boss. My neighbors are crazy. Whatever comes to your mind, let it come to your mind. You have to be brutally honest with yourself. And then you may have to have somebody else on the outside of you also be brutally honest. And that could be a trusted friend. That could be a spouse. That could be a therapist. And somebody to say, I'm not going to judge the words you're using, but just tell me what's on your mind. And sometimes you may have to get a piece of paper and actually write down what's exactly going through your mind, right? And that's being brutally honest. with yourself. And I think that's the best step forward. The other piece of this is we have to practice self-control of our cognitions. We have to practice self-control of our cognitions. Psychology research calls this cognitive distortions. And those are things that takes a hold of our mind, our obsessions, our rumination, that fear response that kicks off and we start worrying and, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? Oh yeah, I remember when that happened in 1972. And it's like this repetitive, ruminative, obsessive way that we can start thinking about things, and it can really sink us. So cognitive distortions are that. And it causes us to have a skewed perception of reality. It may be a truthful thought. It may be a very realistic thought, but are you thinking about it in a way that's going to destroy you or heal you? And so cognitive distortions are very powerful. It really is a very intelligent concept because we do it so much. And sometimes we live life with those skewed cognitions, those incorrect cognitions so much that we become comfortable and we don't even hear ourselves doing it, So we have to gain control over our cognitions. We also have to respond to our unmet needs. When you have a situation where you've grown up with somebody and they are not being the parent that you need them to be, whether that's during childhood, adolescence, or being an adult, you don't have that love and affection, and you certainly probably didn't get that validation or that confirmation of how you see things and what you feel. So cater to your unmet needs as long as they are healthy, as long as they are in moderation, right? Because some people say, oh, cater to my unmet needs. Well, guess what? I'm going to go smoke an entire bowl of marijuana. Then I'm going to go take my Xanax and I'm going to go to sleep. Excuse me. I had a wonderful client that I truly cared for so many years ago. And she was just a wonderful young person, 25 in college, but she would literally smoke a bowl of marijuana, okay? And then would take her prescription Xanax, and she almost didn't make it one day. So we don't want to do that. So we want to cater to unmet needs in a healthy way. Lean on task analysis. Task analysis. You know what that means? It's kind of simple, but it sounds big. Task analysis is this. You stop what you're doing. You pause and ask yourself, is this the way I should be going? Is this the thought that I should be having? Is this the behavior that I should be exhibiting right now? Is this the place that I want to be in the next 15 years? Task analysis. Am I doing the right things to get me from A to B? And I'm going to share this. I do task analysis. I didn't know it was called that. But that's kind of what I'm doing when I sit down. I do planning with my planner. I write down goals. I write down things I need to be doing, what I need to do that's short term. What do I need to do that's long term? Where do I want to be in 2026, 7? And so you can do that too, or you can record it, right? If you have like a recording app on your phone. And so task analysis is really a positive psychological change. It's a post-traumatic growth kind of an idea. It says, I'm going to look at everything that I'm doing and all of my behaviors and reassess. Build structure in your life. We know what that means, guys, right? I don't have to go over that too much, but building structure means getting rid of that toxic person, pushing that toxic person back that way, not responding to everybody who has a need of you, minimizing all the psychological pressure that you put on yourself that's unnecessary, right? So building structure into your life, building a routine is another one. And I don't just mean getting up and going to bed at the same time every day. That's important. But what I mean by routine is this, that I'm going to now start reading more often so I can grow. That's post-traumatic growth. That's reparenting. I'm going to eat better so I can lose a couple of pounds and feel better. I'm going to start doing a hair and face routine for men. I'm going to start working out at the gym more than once a week. I'm going to hang out with the boys on every other Saturday, right? So it's building a routine of healthy behavior in your life. And that can be really reinforcing. We get off track sometimes, but that routine will pull you right back. You've got to stay consistent. That's really the key, right? This is what you're going to want to know. So tell me if you guys in the chat box, tell me if you want this inventory. I will send it to you. And if you're like, Can you help me interpret what this inventory means? 100%, absolutely. I will do that for you. So the inventory is the post-traumatic growth inventory. The post-traumatic growth inventory. The inventory that I have takes you through a series of things. I think it's like a one-page quiz, but you have a intro and an outro, or an ending, and it explains the post-traumatic growth process, and it can give you information on where you're at in the process. So feel free, let me know in the chat box, or post it in the comment section after this live chat ends, and I will get you the link to do your post-traumatic growth inventory and kind of see where you're at. And if you want interpretation, I will give you a confidential interpretation. I will, if you email it to me, then I will go ahead and give you a confidential interpretation of what it actually means if you need it. So let me know in the comment section chat box if you want that inventory. All you do is read through it and check where you think you are, score your scores, and it'll tell you exactly where you are. All right, be kind to yourself. That's another thing. Really, it's self-compassion. Practice humility. That's in there as well. The number one thing that I always say to myself when I get up every day, and it's a little bit of a prayer, I always say, God, help me to be humble today, receptive, help me to listen, help me to understand. And it really does take me a long way. Just doing a simple reflection in the moment, you know? So practice humility and explore your faith in your spiritual self. Earlier, I made that very clear. It's a part of us, right? The theory of post-traumatic growth says it's a major piece of who we are, spirituality. So hold on to faith, pray, you know, hold on to God. Hold on to those things that make you feel secure. That's a really important thing to do. Guys, we're going to wrap up here. I am going to read the chat box. Let me just say these were two interesting topics, right? And they're very in-depth. Detached and immature parents and reparenting yourself and post-traumatic growth were brought into the same talk. It really is a lot to digest, but hopefully I can bring more of these kind of chats to you so that you can walk away saying, you know what, these are some things I'm going to implement, you know? So stay tuned, and we'll just keep doing this because you guys are telling me it's good for you. So we're just going to keep doing this. All right, let me go back to the chat box and say hello and wrap up. Badabbing, is that what it is? Badabbing, hello and welcome. Okay, let me keep moving, guys. Falcon, the black belt, says grudges and malice affect our health. Yes, they do. From blood pressure to hormonal imbalance. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. One of my clients that I had a couple years ago said to me, I went to the doctor and my blood pressure was up and I gained about 15 pounds in 3 months. And she's like, I don't know why I've gained all this. And I don't know why I'm going through all of this. She said, and my mother had enough nerve to look at me and say, it's all the grudges you're carrying. It's starting to come through. And we laughed at that for so many sessions. But maybe there is some truth to that, right? Free Lady says, how can you gorgone without them shopping the abuse? Not sure I understand that. If you can break it down to me a little bit in the comment section, I will go ahead and read that. I'm so sorry. It's not resonating with me. And I'm probably missing it. Michelle Lynn says, thank you so much, Tamara. You are a great clinician. Oh my goodness, thank you. I'm so happy I found you on YouTube again. Thanks so much for these live chats. You're welcome. And I'm so glad to have you. That's so sweet of you. Thank you for that. That's humbling. That's really humbling. Thank you. That's sweet. Don one. Oh, geez. Don one. I totally get that. He says, I'm discovering my inner beauty. Yeah. That's reparenting and healing, isn't it? Wow. I have that confidence. I have that courage. I have that, right? And sometimes you can humbly just, experience that whole process. I like that. 100%. Kim Matthews says, let's look forward and not look back. I don't want to be like Lot's wife and turn into a pillar of salt. I agree. If you guys are familiar with the story of Lot and his wife, and, they were leaving in the Bible, I'm going to explain this just very briefly. In the Bible, they were leaving Sodom and Gomorrah. Sodom and Gomorrah was just a place ridden with like crime and infestation of evil and darkness. And Lot and his wife, they were supposed to be escaping from Sodom and Gomorrah because it was so bad. And Lot was leaving and doing what he felt was right. And his wife took one last look and looked back at the city of Sodom and Gomorrah, and she turned into a pillar of salt, so to speak. And that story is kind of like a powerful revelation in a spiritual sense of what can happen when we start looking back. We start saying, you know what? Let's look back at that. Let me look back at that abuse. Let me go back to that relationship. And what it does, it causes your whole inner man to collapse, right? And that's kind of the theme of that story. So I'm glad you mentioned that, Kim Matthew. Thank you for mentioning that. Kay Razy says, hatred is like acid. It slowly eats away at the vessel that's stored in. Yeah. That's a beautiful way to say that. I'm going to star both of your comments. You guys want to trade seats? Because that was good, both of you. Okay. Sammy D says, journaling is a great tool. Yes, it is. I totally agree with that. I'm moving. Hold on, guys. Bear with me. Jessica J says, I'm late cooking dinner. Hello, Tamara in chat. Hello. I mentioned you earlier, so hopefully you can see the rewatch. Anne of Hearts says, hugs to all. Yes, right back at you. You're always so kind on here and welcoming. All of you guys are such a great community. Yeah. Forgive me, Father. Hello, welcome back. Good to see you. He says, my mom was in a big tornado while I was in the womb. Yeah, I do believe her fight or flight response affected me. And yes, it was a real tornado, not a woke one. Ooh, yeah. I do believe that. I had a guest on my show. It might have been a year or two ago, maybe. I can post that if you want to see it. It's a two-partner live chat. It was me and somebody else that came on. Excuse me. And I mentioned something known as amniotic fluid. Amniotic fluid. That is basically the fluid that, kind of covers the fetus in the womb. And amniotic fluid allows doctors to enter a apparatus, mainly a very, very small needle, into the part of the mom's belly where they can then get a sample of amniotic fluid, which allows doctors to test for tons of things, including Down syndrome, autoimmune disease, all that kind of stuff. But it can also be used as a tool to measure the stress of a mother. And sometimes communication through amniotic fluid, through just being connected by umbilical cords, right? That whole process there, it can really pass on psychological and emotional stress to the baby, to the fetus, if mom is under consistent stress. So this is really a true thing, and there's tons of research that backs it up. So I would not be surprised if that was your experience. Totally get that comment. And Odell, hello and welcome back. If I haven't already said it. Okay, bear with me, guys. Half the battle knowing is, says Tamara. I love Judge Judy. Don't you? I'm like, I should bring her on the job with me. There are some families and clients that are new, and you have to get to know them. And, and sometimes you're like, I wish I just had that really firm person that I could just say is in the office, that can kind of help me take care of the daily tasks, because I need somebody who's on it, but yeah, I like her too. I have to say, times when there's some insensitivity, other times I appreciate her boundaries. I do. I really do. Free Lady says the African thing is complex. It's not all African families agree, but generally there is big abuse somewhere in the family, even if there is one normal one. Yeah. So true. So true. Yeah. Beautifully and wonderfully made. Love it. Portuguese and Puerto Rican. I'm not sure what that's referring to. I don't know. I'm probably getting in on the conversation late. I don't know. Those are my two cultures where I truly wish that I would have been able to travel to Puerto Rico at some point in my travels. Maybe I can still do it. We'll see. We'll see what life brings me. Come on, guys. You guys can't be doing this. My brothers are already obsessed, and so is my mom. So here's Kim Matthews saying, love Judge Judy. You know, if they watch this, they're just going to be out of their mind. Rebecca, hello and welcome. Good to see you back in the live chat. Rebecca says, reparenting is hard because if no one else around you is doing it and being intentional to ensure we don't regress, sometimes you don't get the right support due to the denial mask others wear. Well, reparenting can be hard. That is why in the reparenting process, one of the goals is really being very discerning of who you're bringing into your environment, right? Because once you bring a support system in, or you consider a new support system, you have to, I'll put it this way, you have to really be discerning and insightful and push those other people out of your space so that you can reparent yourself in a healthy way. It is tricky. I do agree with that. I do agree. Don One says, I came out of the darkness into the light. I have great support around me. That is so wonderful. That is so wonderful. Good to know. Yeah. Elizabeth, hello. Welcome back. Good to see you. Elizabeth says, I really thought live chat will start later because YouTube said it will be at 1:40. Now I'm angry. Never mind the main thing. Oh, I'm sorry, Elizabeth. I don't know what happened there. I don't know. YouTube's been having some really odd things. Sorry, Elizabeth. I don't know what happened there. There's always the replay as well. Sammy D says, I'm always learning something new. Here, it's lovely. When I started out in therapy back in 2001, there weren't very many resources or help. The live streams are great for picking up new tools. Yeah. Thank you so much for that, Sammy D. So glad that this is helpful to you. Fairy Girl said the same thing. I hear you, Sammy. Yes, I do. I hear you too. Jessica J says, thank you, Tamara. Sorry I'm late. Yes, it makes sense. Yes. No need to apologize. That is no need. Thank you so much, Anne of Hearts. I appreciate you for that. Let me start over. A seat at the King's table with Tanisha. Hello, welcome. Glad to see you. She says, this is a new concept and it's kind of heartbreaking to admit this is even necessary. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, guys, let's pause. I truly want to keep reading, seeing your comments. I really have to go, so I cannot. Sunshine and Beauty, thank you so much for that kindness. Thank you. I'm going to just go to bed later tonight. That's really what I want to do, is go to bed. Let me add this because I think this is a great ending to the live chat. And let me just also say thank you to all of you who are constantly sending me tips on how to get better, sending me tips on dealing with pneumonia and coughing. And I just truly appreciate you. And thank you for all of your condolences too, when it came to my recent loss with my aunt. Thank you so much. I think that's so kind. James, we're going to end on you. We're going to end on you. James says, I may not have fully forgiven everyone who hurt me, but I've come to a place of more acceptance and neutrality where I can move on without the grudges and letting them live in my head rent free. Love it. Love it. Thank you. Thanks, James McDonald. Love that so much. Guys, thank you for being with me tonight. Truly love being in this space with you. It's therapeutic even to the therapist because I see you guys feeling better. So thank you so much for that. Kay Razy, thank you for your love of the channel and other people and for gifting them with a membership. Thank you for that. Guys, have a safe, wonderful Sunday. I'll see you next weekend. Bye-bye.